In 1993, miners in northwest Iran hit something with their pickaxes that was not rock. It was a human head. Long red-brown hair, a gold earring, and a beard still hung with crystals of salt. Below it, a single leg, still wearing a laced leather boot. The rest of the body was gone, cut away by machines before anyone noticed. The mine was called Chehrabad, near the town of Hamzeli in Zanjan province. Salt had been dug there for over 2,000 years. The miners stopped work and called the police. Nobody there thought they had found something ancient. They thought they had found a murder. For generations, people around Chehrabad told the same story about the mine. They said the deep tunnels were not safe to enter for long. Salt does something strange to a body, they said. It does not let a thing rot away like dirt does. Old miners carried small clay oil lamps into the tunnels, the same simple design passed down for centuries, to see by and to watch for bad air. They said if a tunnel ever caved in on you, the salt would keep you exactly as you were, not as a ghost, but as a body frozen mid-step, waiting to be found by someone else's lamp. Police drove out to Chehrabad, expecting a crime scene. A body missing everything but a head and a leg sounded like something violent and recent. But when doctors looked closely, the skin was wrong for a fresh body. It was leathery, dark brown, and dry as old rope. The beard and hair had survived perfectly, strand by strand. The boot was hand-stitched, the kind no one in Iran had made in 100 years. Whoever this was, he had not died last month. Word went out to archaeologists in Tehran. What the miners had pulled from the salt was not a murder victim. Archaeologists tested the remains and got a number back, about 1,700 years old. That placed him in the Sassanid period, when Persia was a great empire. They called him Salt Man, and later just Salt Man I, because more were coming. He wore wool trousers and carried an iron knife, a walking stick, and a whetstone for sharpening tools. A silver earring hung from one ear. His last meal was still inside him, barley and other plant matter, barely digested. Whatever killed him did it fast. This was not a burial. Nobody had laid him out or dressed him for death. He had simply been working, and then he was not. Salt Man I was not alone. Over the next years, from 2004 to 2010, 5 more bodies turned up in the same mine. Miners found them the same way, mid-dig, by accident. Each body still had its own things. One wore a golden earring and carried a leather sack. Another had a broken leg that had healed crooked, meaning he had lived with the injury for years before he died. Another still had his walking stick close by, the wood worn smooth from years of gripping it underground. Every one of them was found close to fallen rock and collapsed salt walls, in tunnels that had come down without warning. With 6 bodies from one mine, the obvious story wrote itself. People assumed the saltmen had all died together on the same terrible day. Picture a work crew deep in a tunnel when the ceiling gave way all at once, burying everyone before they could run. Newspapers and early reports leaned into that picture. It was simple, it was sad, and it made sense. A mine collapses, it kills the people inside it, and salt happens to preserve them afterward instead of letting them rot. For years, that was the working idea. One mine, one bad day, 6 unlucky miners caught in the same fall of rock and salt. Then scientists did something nobody had done before. They radiocarbon dated each salt man separately, instead of assuming they were all the same age. The results did not match the one disaster story at all. Some bodies were from the Sassanid period, around 1700 years old, but at least one other body was far older, from the Achaemenid period, close to 2400 years old. That is a gap of roughly 700 years between deaths. They could not have died on the same day. They could not even have died in the same century. This was never one collapse. It was the same mine, killing people, generation after generation, for hundreds of years. Once scientists knew they were looking at different centuries, the small details became the real story. Some of the men carried whipworm eggs in their gut, and lice eggs stuck to their hair. Ordinary discomforts of ordinary lives. Chemical traces in their bones matched a diet built around sheep and grain, the food of working people, not soldiers or priests. And in every layer of the mine, from the oldest body to the youngest, archaeologists kept finding the same simple design of clay oil lamp. Different centuries, different empires ruling Persia above ground, and still, miners carried the same lamp shape into the same dark tunnels to do the same job. Today, several of the salt men are on display in a museum in Zanjan, still wearing their own boots, their own wool clothes, their own beards. Visitors can see the exact stitching a bootmaker did 1,000 or 2,000 years ago. But one question still has no clean answer. Why did people keep going back into a mine that had already killed workers before them, sometimes centuries before? Maybe each generation never knew about the last collapse. Maybe the salt itself, so valuable it was once close to money, was worth the risk, no matter who it had already taken. Nobody living can say for certain which reason is true. The Chehrabad mine is still worked today, by machine now instead of pickaxe, in some of the very same tunnels the saltmen once dug by hand. Rock salt still comes out in blocks, sold for roads and for tables. Somewhere below the modern mine, sealed behind walls of salt that no one has opened yet, there could be a seventh body, or an eighth, from some year nobody living was there to see. The last body found so far still had gray hairs stuck to his scalp, and dirt from that final shift still under his fingernails. More forgotten history every week. Subscribe so it isn't lost twice.